how does a green data center business reach out to customers? So you have a data center business that's green focused, environmental sustainability focused. How do you reach out to customers? So if I answer that literally, this is going to be outreach that involves your customer success and account management team and a customer marketing initiative, because you're saying you're reaching out to customers. If I take it a little less literally, you probably mean prospective clients, prospective customers. So let's take the first scenario. The first scenario where we want to reach out to existing customers. So assuming that our CRM system, our customer relationship management system, or email database is in relatively good shape, there's probably a minimum of 2 different kinds of motions that you have to build and nurture and expand relationships with your existing customers. You likely have people, and then you have some things that scale a little better than people. The people would be like your CSMs, your customer success managers, or your account managers, your AMs, depending on what you're calling it. These are the folks that work with your existing customers to make sure that they're getting great value from your data center related business. They make sure that they're happy with uptime. They make sure they're happy with their bills, that there's no surprises, that you know what's coming next. You've knocked it out of the park on onboarding. You've knocked it out of the park on getting to initial value, intended value, and extended value. And there's great relationships with there. And hopefully there's the unit economics are strong enough that you can actually support hiring great people and having your great people have a decent enough ratio relative to the number of clients they manage that they can build great relationships with your existing clients. In addition to that one-to-one kind of motion with your existing team, for existing customers, you likely want to invest in customer marketing. This is where you do one-to-many. This is where you have great tutorial videos, great email courses, great on-demand courses, and great events. These can be virtual events, like streams, private webinars just for existing clients, which for a big enough account, you may be hosting these events just for one particular a group of stakeholders at one particular account. For smaller accounts or on a more frequent basis, you're probably inviting all of your customers together, but they're customer-only events, they're customer-only webinars. You may do offline versions of those as well. In-person events, customer conferences, customer user groups can be hugely, hugely impactful for reaching out to your existing customers. So that's the existing customers. And what goes without saying is if you're green focused, most of your content, most of your events will likely revolve around sustainability, heat reuse, density, power reuse, carbon offset credits, decarbonization. Their own words, of course. Do the buyer personas, make sure you know their own words about what's top of mind for them, and then deliver a ton of value to your existing customers. So that's typically done by a combination of customer marketing and customer success. What about future customers? Future customers, that's going to be a go-to-market playbook that's run by traditional marketing, what's often called sales development reps, account executives. And again, it's a similar kind of focus on a certain kind of company. Ideal client profile, your total addressable market, probably nothing new there, having a target account list. And the buyer personas who you want to build these relationships with as future potential clients that care about sustainability, that care about your green data center business. So what topics should you be creating content around? Your blogs, your videos, your podcasts, your webinars, your offline versions of those, your breakfast seminars, lunch and learns, and similar kinds of events. Let your buyer personas dictate the priorities. In other words, don't assume that you know what they care about. Do the actual research. Maybe 20% of the input for what goes into your buyer persona document comes from internal stakeholder interviews, but 80%, most of that input should come from external research, from ideally face-to-face conversations. Second best would be video conversations. If you can't get access to either of those, then at the absolute minimum, you should be looking at a stack of representative LinkedIn profiles and search footprint for those individual people about how they describe themselves, their words on what they care most about, what's stressing them out the most, where they spend time, what they spend time on, all the sources of influence. That'll give you the consensus on what your whole go-to-market playbook, your sales and marketing effort should be focusing on for future clients for your green-related data center business. But the key thing is we need to remember that most of your customers, most of your future customers don't want any vendor contact, don't want any sales contact till they're nearly ready to purchase. Gartner found 83% of a typical journey is over before vendor contact. The only way we're going to get you in early and often enough is to completely change your mindset with this. So instead of being just focused on closing a transaction and getting a deal on the deals board, that we're focused on getting you in early and often as the teacher, the subject matter expert, the consultant, and the trusted advisor. So when it comes to how your prospects, how your future customers think of green data centers, your company is in there as often as possible and as many of those 28 touch points throughout awareness and consideration decision. So the decks are really, really strongly stacked in your favor when it comes time to the purchase decision. So that's how a green data center business can reach out to both existing customers and future potential customers. And then the outreach is just simply a matter of outbound and ads and social reach and email and all the typical things that are hopefully in your go-to-market playbook.